Welcome to Lesson 3 of An Introduction to Python by me, Richwile Cooper. In this lesson, I'll be introducing the concept of lists. We've already started to learn how we can store different types of variables, like strings and integers. But large numbers of strings and integer variables and other variable types become unwieldy, so using arrays is a good way of managing them. Lists can be used to store data of similar types or data of different types. For example, you could have a list that contains strings, a list that contains numbers, floats, or even other lists. We define a list in a similar way to defining a variable. The list name followed by the list. In this case, the list is enclosed in square brackets and items in the list are separated by commas. A list of strings is slightly different in that each item needs to be surrounded by speech marks, but they're still separated by commas. An empty list can be defined just by having the open closed brackets with nothing in the middle. The syntax for printing a list is the same for printing a variable, the command print, and the name of the list in round brackets. Using this method, the list is displayed exactly as it has been defined, including the square brackets. If we want to print the list without the square brackets, we use a for loop. A for loop will perform an action for each item in a list. In this case, the action is print. The syntax for doing this is shown below. The variable name item could be anything. For example, you could say for banana in A list, print banana, or cheesecake in A list, print cheesecake. It would have exactly the same output. However, it's always sensible to use variable names that mean something in the context of what you're doing. Note the use of indentation. The indents are key to making a for loop work. Any code that is indented directly below a for loop will perform once for each item in the list. Using this method, each item is printed below the one before. Pause the video now and practice what you've learned. You can add some code to the print statement to make Python print everything in the list on one line. You can put any delimiter inside the speech marks or leave it empty. Practice printing lists underneath each other and on the same line, using the techniques as described in the video. Lists are a lot like strings in some respects. Like strings, lists have indexes, can be sliced, and concatenated. The syntax for this is identical to the string slicing syntax. Mike is at index 2 of B-list, so to print B-list square bracket 2, and to print of A-list, the first number in A-list, print A-list brackets 0. We can slice lists in a similar way. We can find indexes in lists as well. And in fact, this technique works equally well with strings, so you might want to try it out later. We use listname.index and then in round brackets the thing in the list that we're actually looking for, and the computer will return an index number. In this example, we're looking for the index of Sharon. We can see by looking at the list that that should return a value of 3. You may want to pause the video now and practice what you've learned. In a future lesson, we'll learn how to append items to a list and insert them at specific indexes within a list. We'll also learn how to remove items from a list. We're going to create two new lists made up from slices of a list. New list 1 will be the first two items of a list, and new list 2 will be the last two items of a list. We'll print them and then glue them together using concatenate to create another new list. Then we'll print that too. We'll just print those two lists one after the other, and you'll notice that the two lists will be in square brackets. And now we'll concatenate those and output the result. Note the two slice lists and the concatenated list. Okay, so we can create lists and we can print them using a for loop. We can get indexes from lists and we can slice and concatenate them. That's all for now. There'll be more on lists in lesson 4.